Hi SI alumni, I'm Tom Shea. If you are of age to remember the original Top Gun movie, you know that it inspired a new generation of aviators into our armed services. Remarkably, 103 years before the premiere of Top Gun in 1986, John J. Montgomery, class of 1878, took flight on an airplane he built in San Diego, assisted by his brother James. This feat was 20 years before the Wright brothers' flight at Kitty Hawk and is widely regarded by aviation historians as the invention of fixed-wing flight. On the eve of Veterans Day, we want to highlight SI alumni, both active and retired. These alumni, and many more like them, have answered the call to serve in the most consequential way. Some of them, like Lieutenant Scott Goosens and Lieutenant Michael Chang, have attained membership into the highly prestigious Naval Demonstration Team, the Blue Angels. We were able to spend time with Lieutenant Goosens when he returned to San Francisco as Blue Angels team member flying Jet Number 3, and also to hear from those who have answered the prayer of Saint Ignatius to give and not to count the cost. To these and all active duty, retired, and veterans, we appreciate your service to our country and freedom. We are SI.
It feels so good to be back at SI. It's been a while. I don't think I've been back since 2007. So it's very much the same and also very different in a good way in many respects. I think, walking through the halls, the bones of the place are still the same, and the faces, even though we're 10 plus years apart from when I was going through the halls here as a student, it's the same. It just reminds me of, it brings me back to 2006, my senior year here at Saint Ignatius, and it's just an unbelievable experience to be back. I was actually in San Francisco when I got that call. I had just been in Pensacola for the finalist week, going through all the strength tests and interviews and all that. Quite the experience applying for the Blue Angels. It's a long process. It starts in March and you don't really find out until July. College-like application with letters of recommendation, references, and observe the men and women working on the jets and flying the jets and all that. And then if you're lucky, you make finalist. You get invited down to Pensacola for a week, go through the more strenuous interviews and strength tests and all that. I remember I flew back to San Francisco on a Thursday night from Pensacola. I had all of Friday to think about it because the call doesn't happen until Saturday, so I don't think I got any sleep for about 2 days. They kind of lead you down the path of thinking that maybe you didn't get selected, and then all of a sudden the whole team's there on the other end of the line welcoming you to the team. The Diamond is all about precision flying, which is what the Blue Angels hang their hat on, right? It is incredibly difficult flying. Talk about trust. Takes a lot of trust when you're flying about 12 inches away from another airplane, doing barrel rolls and loops and going about 400, 500 miles per hour, sometimes 600, 700 miles an hour throughout the air. So practice, practice, practice. We don't just wake up and put on a Blue Angel show. It starts, like I said, way back in November, and we're not flying the tight sets that we are currently that you'll see over San Francisco. You got to put in the work. It's a grind. It's showing up every day with that relentlessly optimistic attitude, with that desire to get better.
I'm Mark Swartz. I'm SI class of 2001, and I'm currently a commander, which is an 05 in the United States Navy Reserve.
Michael Cheng, C-H-E-N-G. It's Lieutenant Commander retired with the U.S. Navy.
My name is Reagan Greer. I am a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army, and I am a field artillery officer.
I chose serving my country partly because it was kind of what my family does. My father had gone to the Naval Academy and served as a Navy reservist for a number of years. And then my brother, Luke Swartz, class of 98 from SI, student body president. He also did Navy ROTC. So at first it was kind of what my family had done, and it was a way for me to get college paid for. I was attracted by the educational benefits and kind of the adventure.
I chose to serve my country because I wanted to be a part of a team that was bigger than myself. Early on in my education at SI, we learned the values of solidarity, service, professional success that really embody what it means to have received a Jesuit education. And what really stuck out to me was the service aspect. I really enjoyed doing community service. I really enjoyed giving back to my community, giving back to the people in the areas that really brought me up and made me the person that I am today. And so service was the biggest driver of my desire to go into the U.S. Army.
Being first generation Chinese Americans, there was a period of time where it was really popular on the news reports on flag burning. And I remember my mom telling me, because she immigrated over from Hong Kong, how in some ways, we have this great ability for freedom of speech, but in other ways, as Americans, we kind of take for granted those freedoms and the benefits we have as Americans compared to other countries where things like that aren't allowed. She kind of stated it in a way that sometimes we take it for granted, but we should be very thankful. To the dismay of my parents, I took it upon myself to pay back that. And I decided to join the Navy at that time. One, to serve my country, but two, also be able to fly off aircraft carriers.
Being a part of the Modus program. All 4 years of my SI experience, I was in the Modus program, and Modus really means like a commitment to the concept of more, to doing more, to go beyond what is expected of you. And so that, I want to say, is really what pushed me to go to West Point and what pushed me to want to pursue a career in the military, is that there, as an officer especially, there's always something that is expected of you, and there's a standard that you have to rise up to and meet, and also to maintain, because you're a leader for all of your soldiers.
I think the social justice plays a lot of role in pretty much everything that you do. I was still am an F-18 pilot, and we were flying combat missions in Afghanistan. I remember on September 11th watching the Pentagon burn, thinking like, I want to do something. And here I am 9 years later in Afghanistan. I respond to a joint terminal attack controller, which is like the guy on the ground who's getting shot at. And he needed air support because they had watched this group of, they assume Al-Qaeda fighters, were shooting them. And then they watched them go in a house, and they took out what they assumed to be a roadside bomb, planted the roadside bomb, and then were walking across the field. And they wanted me to perform an airstrike on him. He runs into a compound, and they're like, great, now we can blow up the compound. And as I'm circling around, I remember looking, and I remember right before I turned back in to drop my bombs, I remember thinking like, wow, this building looks a little bit different than all the other ones. And I don't know if it was a religion class at SI. Why in a Muslim country would there be a building that looks different than all the other buildings, like an orientation difference in the other buildings? And so right before I released my bombs, I said to the guy, I was like, hey, let's just triple check to make sure that there's nothing weird going on in this building. And he comes back a couple seconds later and aborts the strike. It was a mosque. And obviously looked different because the wall needs to face Mecca. And then I watched about 45 people walk out of that mosque. But minutes before, I was going to turn into dust.
Saint Ignatius' prayer of generosity is something I used to say every day. And during my time at Officer Candidate School, during those 12 weeks where, I got a drill instructor yelling at me every morning, I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go run or do physical training and stuff like that, do PT. I said that prayer every night. And so when you listen to that prayer and what we've been taught at SI, service to country.
No matter what you want to do, whether it's military or a career in medicine or as a teacher, whatever it may be that you want to do, the values that you're gonna leave Saint Ignatius with will set you up in the future. I mean, being a person with and for others, that right there, walking out of the school with that in your heart, which I think every single graduate of Saint Ignatius does, sets you up fantastically.